When I was a boy, I was a huge gaming fanatic. Even from just the moment that I picked up my first controller. My very first console was a Nintendo 64. And although I don't remember it really that clearly, I remember playing Mario Kart 64, GoldenEye 007, even that one South Park game for the Nintendo 64, South Park 64, whatever it was called, right? But it was on there. And for some reason, 6, 7-year-old me was playing it. And now that I look back at it, right, I wouldn't really call the Nintendo 64 my first console. I would call the Game Boy Advance my first gaming system, right? Nintendo 64 is still, I guess, the first home console, but the very first gaming system I owned, the very first thing that got me in love with video games was the Game Boy Advance. Now, my brother owned a Game Boy Advance. I owned a Nintendo DS, but both of those things were able to play Game Boy Advance games. And so I'm coming at you guys today with my Game Boy Advance collection. There are some games in here that are childhood picks, and there are some games in here that I got, during my collecting journey. But the collection isn't that big, so actually I'm combining it as well with my Game Boy Color and original Game Boy games. So without further ado, let's jump into it. I'm going to start us off with some of the licensed titles. Here we got Jimmy Neutron, Jet Fusion, and I guess also just for a little bit of introductory points before we get going, is that a lot of these games are loose. 99.9% of these games are loose, actually. So I only have one complete box game, but I'm very excited to share what that game is. But hey, it'll be at the end. We'll get there when we get there. Jimmy Neutron Jet Fusion. I actually kind of enjoyed this game. It wasn't that bad, honestly, and I feel like the Game Boy Advance as a whole is a system that had a lot of different licensed games that worked really well with the limitations of the system because it pretty much was just a bit more beefed up SNES. And I feel like that was something that really played to a lot of the strengths of developers because whether or not you made something like a Metroid or you made something like a Jimmy Neutron Jet Fusion, you still came out with a game that a lot of kids could enjoy. So I enjoyed this game a lot. I enjoyed it a lot more than the other Jimmy Neutron game that I own on the system, which is Jimmy Neutron Attack of the Twonkies. Attack of the Twonkies. Wow. This game is one that I feel was just so low quality for some reason. I have no idea why. I didn't get very far into it, and I didn't really care that much for it. It had Jimmy Neutron, and I loved Jimmy Neutron as a kid, so I was like, "Hey, I'll boot it up. I'll play through that first opening sequence where you're inside the Neutron house." Other than that, not much I really enjoyed from this game. Next up, I've got Teen Titans for the Game Boy Advance. Now, my cousin gave this game to me. I love this game so much. Even playing it like now, it's a beat 'em up. It's a bit slow for beat 'em up too. It doesn't really feel that satisfying to be honest. But as a kid, I thought that this was definitely one of the better Game Boy Advance games I owned. And I heard that the GameCube game and I guess the console version of that game. I think the GameCube is the only place that got the Teen Titans console version of this game. Is better. I played a little bit of it, so I don't know if I 100% agree with that take. Off of just a little bit that I played, but I do enjoy the Game Boy Advance game a lot. Next up, I've got Samurai Jack and the Amulet of Time. I love Samurai Jack so much. This is not a childhood pick, actually. This is a game that I got later on from a friend who was looking to sell his collection. And this is a game that I played for a little bit, but I stopped because, of course, being older, these games aren't really for me anymore. But it was kind of nice to see that a lot of different Cartoon Network properties, even those kind of like, not to say Samurai Jack was more niche, but it aired at such a weird time where you know, it wasn't like a what's something a heavy hitter I can compare. It wasn't like a Foster's. It wasn't like a um you know what I'm saying. Overall, Samurai Jack: The Amulet of Time, off of the little bit I played, it is not that bad. But I can't attest to too much of it. I've got the SpongeBob SquarePants movie. This is actually a childhood game, and it is probably one of the most played GBA games that I own because of that. The SpongeBob SquarePants movie video game. I like the PC version of this game a lot. I own that, and I played that a lot. And I think that game, like even just remembering it now, I thought that game was a really solid, good game. This game I played a lot, but I wouldn't say it was a game that I thought was amazing, even as a kid. Overall, I would say that it is fun enough, especially if you like SpongeBob. And some of the level designs will definitely call back to the movie in very interesting ways. But I'm not going to say that this game is, a hidden gem of any kind, even among a licensed GBA game. A game I will say is a hidden gem, though, is Danny Phantom: The Ultimate Enemy. I learned that this game was actually made exclusively for the Game Boy Advance, which is a very interesting proposition, actually, or just concept for to make a exclusive Game Boy Advance game when you're making a licensed game. Because I feel like so many people would want to spread that out across as many different avenues as they can. But Danny Phantom and the Ultimate Enemy is a game that I love so much. I replayed it from start to finish as recently as 5 or 6 years ago, just off of boredom, and it is was still a fun game. And I don't know what it is. It's like this, kind of. It's also this beat 'em up, like where it's like you beat up a bunch of characters on one side of the screen, then the game is like, all right, you can move on ahead. You beat them up in one zone, keep going, and you have an enemy with it's a beat 'em up. Yeah, I'm like, as I explained it more and more, I was like, this is a beat 'em up. So, and I love the movie or the TV special, so this is just a no brainer in terms of why this game is one of my favorites, um, not of all time, favorite GBA games that I have. Next up, I've got Fairly Odd Parents: Enter the Something. The My friend kind of wrote on it when he was younger, so his name is kind of plastered all over the front. But I think that adds a lot to the charm of it. I played a little bit of this game. I can't really attest that much to it. In terms of Fairly Odd Parents games, I owned one as a kid, but I don't really remember what it was. But yeah, this game is not one I have much to say about, to be honest. So we're getting through a lot of the filler first, so we can get to the meat and potatoes of the collection. So bear with me. And boom, Sonic Advance. Now, my first Sonic game was this actually. Now that I remember it, my first Sonic game was Sonic Advance, and it's because again there was no Sonic games on the N64, and as a kid having a Game Boy Advance, the only Sonic games I could play on there were probably like the port they did of Sonic One, or something like Sonic Advance. And I'm glad Sonic Advance was my first one because Sonic Advance just showed me how cool Sonic characters could be, because it was just like in between period from the Dreamcast to the, Dark Ages, and this just had so much of that like Dreamcast era swagger and the character design and the level design and just everything that was going on. If you've played Sonic Advance, you know. And I feel like it is one of the most underrated 2D Sonic games of all time. People don't really talk about it when they're talking about great 2D Sonic games. You hear Sonic 1 through 3, you hear Mania, but you don't really hear the Sonic Advance trilogy. Sometimes you do, of course. People, of course, remember these games and they remember them fondly, but I don't think it gets talked about enough, and that is my point. Sonic Advance 1, phenomenal game. I've got Sonic Advance 2. In terms of the Sonic Advance games, I'd say that it goes in terms of enjoyment. Sonic Advance 3, 2, and then 1. So actually, 3, 1, and 2. Yeah. 2, I think, is just kind of whatever. But I don't really, again, remember that much about these games because it's been so long since I've played them. I think 1 is the game I've played the most recently, and 3 I've touched a little bit recently as well, but like I haven't played it from start to finish like I did 1 when I revisited it. So 2 is a game that I probably have the least amount of on-hand knowledge as we speak right now of the game, but it still is something that I remember liking a lot. Sonic Advance 3, as I mentioned before, this is probably my favorite Sonic Advance game just because it feels like it took the entire formula from the Sonic Advance games and just like perfected it. I don't think I've ever actually beaten this game, which is the crazy thing about it, but I've played this game a ton, especially as a kid, and I I feel like it's the Sonic Advance game that I come to the most often. Sonic Advance 1 is great, but it kind of has that thing where it's like Sonic 1 where like this is a good game, but like if I feel like I'm in the mood for Sonic Advance, I'm gonna play 3. And if I feel like I'm in the mood for 2D Sonic, I'm gonna play 3 and Knuckles, right? Or like Mania, but that's mostly because like again, Mania came out during a time where it was so impactful. But this is not a Mania video. It is a GBA video, but there's some Sonic in here. So I don't have a label for it, but I've got Dragon Ball Z: The Legacy of Goku. You can see I kind of scribbled on the front with the Legacy of Goku thing. Uh, Legacy of Goku thing. I just wrote Legacy of Goku. One of my favorite games of all time, probably. So I'd probably say it has to be like in the top like 60, 70. Like it's not in that top 50 just off of what I've played in recent years. So I feel like it would be a little weird to put it there, but I definitely say like a little bit outside of that because this is one of the first games that I ever emulated. I don't know why I treated that like it was such a bad word, but it was one of the first games I ever emulated, and it in addition to it introducing me to the world of emulation, it just really showed me like that Dragon Ball games are just doing things a little different, man. Like playing this on like my little tiny scrappy Samsung Galaxy S2 and enjoying the heck out of it is an experience that I will cherish forever, and that's why I love these games. Even if they may not be the greatest Dragon Ball games of all time, even if not many people talk about it, because it's a Game Boy Advance game, and I feel like that's just kind of the risk you run when you make a game specifically for handhelds. It is still a baller and a blast, and I love this game. I've got two copies of Dragon Ball Z Legacy of Goku 2, but I like Legacy of Goku 2 more than I like Legacy of Goku 1. At least, I think it kind of flip flops a little bit from time to time. This game is also great. Uh, Everything that I was going to say about Legacy of Goku could just be applied to Legacy of Goku 2. This is a phenomenal game, and I highly recommend that you try it out if you are a fan of the Dragon Ball franchise. Dragon Ball Z Boo's Fury. I have not played this game, actually, to be honest with you, keeping it a bean. I played it for like a little bit, but I wouldn't really count it as playing it. And I wasn't really impressed with what I played, so I just stopped. But again, that also probably has to do with the fact that I played this game after my time with Dragon Ball Game Boy Advance games had come to an end, and honestly, Dragon Ball games in general. But if anyone has played Boo's Fury and they think it's good, just let me know in the comments below, and I might actually just give it a little bit more of my time than 15 minutes. Next up, I've got Yu-Gi-Oh! GX Duel Academy. I think that's what it's called. I've not played this game, but my brother's played this game, and he loves it. He has had a blast playing it, and he believes that it's one of the better Yu-Gi-Oh! Games. I highly recommend that you try it out just off of his recommendation, but know that it's his recommendation and not mine. But people love Yu-Gi-Oh! Of course, and it just makes sense that the Yu-Gi-Oh! Game during, well, I think Yu-Gi-Oh's pinnacle was like around the early 2000s. So yeah, this makes sense. Around Yu-Gi-Oh's height would do so well and would be so well received. Next up, I've got Yu-Gi-Oh! Reshef of Darkness or Destruction. Reshef of Destruction. I think that's how you say it. Is it Reshef? Is it Resh? I don't even know. I've played this game before, actually. I've played this game actually a quite few number of times. And this game, I've been trying to use it to get into Yu-Gi-Oh! Or like I did when I was younger, and it just was not clicking for me. Like at least with Pokemon, like even Pokemon didn't click with me off rip. And I would still say that like I kind of understood the basic concept of Pokemon a little bit more with that. Maybe it's just because I was not as openly exposed to the Yu-Gi-Oh anime, or I didn't latch onto the anime as much as I could have. Because to be fair, the Pokemon anime also changed my perception of Pokemon a little bit. So maybe it should have just been the same thing with Yu-Gi-Oh, and that's kind of unfortunate. But I played this game a lot actually. I've tried it a lot. I've tried basically that intro starting area a ton of times, but in terms of having concrete thoughts on it, I really don't have that many. So it's unfortunate. Next up, I've got the Rugrats video game. I think this game is just a collection of mini games. I know it's just a collection of mini games, but I don't really have that many strong opinions of it. I played it like a couple times. It was kind of that one game, even as a kid. It's weird that I had this type of game, but that I would just boot up, play like a mini game or two, turn it off, and I'd be content with just doing that like occasionally. But yeah, this game I lost a label a long time ago. Actually, for a lot of these games, I should probably look at replacing the labels. I could probably get some on Etsy, but as of right now, it's labelless and it's opinionless, low key, because well, no, not really. It's a fun-ish kind of game. So, but if you're above the age of like 12, you may not find it that fun anymore. So, but I found it fun when I was like 8. Speaking of games I found fun when I was 8, The Incredibles plus Dory. Yeah, you can tell that I'm just a master at writing down the names of my games. I plus D. Both these games. Actually, no. The wait, I really write Incredibles plus Finding. Oh my goodness, it's Finding Nemo. That is the actual name of the franchise, especially in the time this came out. But I still wrote I plus D for some reason. I don't know why Finding Dory is the first thing that pops into my head when I think about the Finding Nemo franchise. But The Incredibles plus Finding Nemo. The Finding Nemo game is not good, to be honest. But the Incredibles game is not bad actually. So, but it's also again another case of we're making a licensed GBA game. It's going to be a beat 'em up. And depending on whether or not you like the source material or whether or not you are young enough like me to not really understand the different subgenres the games can fall into, you might just go, this game is similar to this other game that I like. So I like this game. Duh. But yeah, it's whatever. So it's not good, but it's not horrible either. I should just start saying mid instead of just going through all that rigmarole. Marvel Ultimate Alliance, man, what is it with the beat 'em ups, man? Oh my goodness, I'm pretty sure this is a beat 'em up. It's either a beat 'em up or it's a fighting game, but I am not a fan of this game either. I wasn't really a huge fan of Marvel back then. I don't know what it was, but like everything like pre MCU, where like Marvel characters kind of had this like grungy aesthetic. Like, it was like when like Spider Man, Wolverine, and the Hulk were like the three Marvel characters people like really actually cared about. I just do not have that much fondness for this era, and because of that, I just don't really care that much for this game. I care about this game in the sense of it's a childhood game, and I appreciate it for that, and I always kind of cherish it for that. But in terms of anything else, it's not. It's not really anything that I'm too fond of. All right, that's enough of the bad games. I promise. And just to show you guys that I'm being true to my word, The Legend of Zelda: The Minish Cap. This was my first Zelda game, which is kind of crazy to think about. I have not finished the Minish Cap. I want to finish the Minish Cap this year, but I'm obviously giving some priority to some other games that I have not finished yet and that I've abandoned, or actually, no, not abandoned. I've shelved. I mean, like, oh, I'm definitely going to get back to this in the past like 2 years. So this is one game that is definitely on my radar. I got it about a year ago. No, at the beginning of last year. So yeah, I guess a year ago when I was living in Syracuse, New York, and I got it from a game store alongside with a Nintendo Power magazine. So well, of the specific game, and it was honestly really cool, honestly, to see both those two things combined. But overall, uh, it's a good Zelda game. I didn't know this was developed by Capcom. Shout out Simon for letting me know that. I didn't know this was developed by Capcom, so they did a banger job developing the Zelda game, and I think they should be allowed to develop like one more, just for like old time's sake. Nintendo, if you're listening to this, they got you. I got you. I'm bringing y'all back to the Game Boy Color era. Donkey Kong Country. Boom. This is not. This is probably my least favorite version of. Well, there's Donkey Kong Land, which I guess is a version of Donkey Kong Country. So I guess I'll omit that just for the sake of discussion. This is probably my least favorite version of Donkey Kong Country, solely because again, like the hardware limitations. I think Donkey Kong Country is perfect on the SNES. There's also Donkey Kong Country versions for the Game Boy Advance, which spoiler alert, I have. But Donkey Kong Country for the Game Boy Color is just all right. It's a port of it. It's not my favorite port of it. I think once I go through the Donkey Kong Country GBA games, I actually give like my general opinion on the Donkey Kong Country franchise. So, because that kind of seems like the best thing to do with that time. Donkey Kong Country 1. Donkey Kong Country as a franchise just became one of my favorites out of nowhere. The Donkey Kong Country franchise, I got introduced to it on like a really bad sick day, like a really, really bad sick day. And I played through the first game and I was like, oh my goodness, this is gas. It's a banger. And then I played through the second game and I was like, this is one of my favorite games of all time. It's top 10. And then I played through the third game and I was like, this is all right. So, but I've already talked about this, I'm pretty sure, on the channel. Donkey Kong Country 1 for the GBA is actually a pretty solid port. I like it. I still would prefer to just play the SNES version, to be honest. But this is not a bad port of the games. If someone wants to experience the Donkey Kong Country franchise handheld, portably, then they are more than welcome to do so through here and have a blast with it, because I'm pretty sure you will. Donkey Kong Country 2, again, one of my favorite games of all time. I've got it. It's here. I don't know if I'll ever make a video specifically about Donkey Kong Country 2. So I'll just say that one of the tightest platformers I've ever played. It is amazing in terms of its level design, in terms of just its physics, as I mentioned before, in terms of just how tight it is. And Bramble Blast, Sticker Brush Symphony. Come on, man. I don't even need to say anything. I really don't. I really don't. I really don't. And I guess same thing goes for Donkey Kong Country 3. Not the, tightness and whatever, but just the need to not really say anything, because I already told you it's Donkey Kong Country. So like it has like a base level of like how negatively I can think about it, but like it's still just kind of like, you ever had that thing that's just you just kind of feel is just, this is how I feel about Donkey Kong Country 3. So, and only Donkey Kong Country 3. I have strong opinions about everything else. Next up, I've got Metroid Fusion. Metroid Fusion. Metroid Fusion is Definitely one of my favorite Metroid games out of the two that I played, which is Dread and Fusion. But Metroid Fusion is solid. I got all the way to the final boss, but I did not beat it. Yes, I know I got filtered. This and Perfect Dark are the two you know games that I got to the final boss, and because I was getting filtered so hard, I was just like done. I don't really care that much about it. But this year, I'm going to try and actually finish these games out. We'll see at the end of the year when I kind of do my whole recap thing on whether or not that happened. But alas, Metroid Fusion, very solid, very good Metroid game. If you are someone who got into the franchise with Dread like I did, and you didn't play any Metroid games since then, or you haven't played any Metroid games since then, please play Metroid Fusion. It is a banger. It is awesome. You will not regret it as your second Metroid game. But if there are any other Metroid fans in the comments and want to prove me wrong and tell me that there are other better second Metroid games, and that I'm a liar and a capper, just let me know. Speaking of Metroid, I got Metroid Zero Mission. I planned on playing this at the beginning of the year, but I changed over my theme for the year to be like, finish what you started. So now this will not get any play this year, but next year I'm hoping that it will because I hope to have like a little bit more free time, next year. So we'll see. But yeah, Metroid Zero Mission, man. I don't have anything to say about it. I haven't even heard that much about this game, to be honest, in terms of like what it's about. I know people say like, "Oh, this is solid," but I have not actually gotten to it. And this game was expensive to buy too, so mostly because I thought I was going to get to it sooner than I thought. Um, but yeah, no, that did not happen. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga. This is not my childhood copy, but I did have a childhood copy, and I loved this game so much. Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga is one of those games that, like, I don't know, it just really shows you that like Mario can be more, right? Because like I think the thing with me is that like I grew up in the era where Mario was like starting to become a little bit more sanitized, like the new Super Mario Bros. DS era, like all the rough and toughness out of the Nintendo GameCube. Not to say like Mario was like basically going the Sonic track or whatever in that era, but like there just was a little bit more like kind of like spike to it. I don't know how else to describe it, but Mario and Luigi Superstar Saga is kind of one of those examples. Even the newer Mario and Luigi games don't really feel like they like have the same type of like attitude as Superstar Saga. But anyway, banger. If you have not played this game, please play it. I have not beaten this game, but I've played a lot of this game. And who knows, maybe one of these days I will get around to actually playing it from start to finish. Super Mario World, Super Mario Advance 2. I don't really know the differences between this and Advance 1. I think this is just Super Mario World, but like it's ported over to the GBA. So I like Super Mario World a lot. I think it's one of the best platformers of all time. It's a banger. It's really good. I really don't know what else to say. I played Super Mario World from start to finish when I was like super young, like when I was like 11, and then I played it again when I was like 16 or 17. But there's not really much I can say about Super Mario World. It's pretty good. So, which I guess is kind of my thing with the Mario franchise, where a lot of it is me going, "This is pretty good," but I don't really have strong like feelings. To say I can't write an essay about it. There we go. That is the best way to put it. I can be like, "This is good." I can maybe give you like a few sentences, but I can't write an essay about it. That's how I stand on it. Super Mario Advance, the original. I think this one is. I think this one's Super Mario Bros. 3 ported over. I generally, again, I forget, but I've not really played this game, so I don't know what else to tell you, man. I'm sorry that this one ended up being like the one I probably had to say the least about because it's a Mario game. Ladies and gentlemen, we're about to run the Pokemon Gauntlet. Are you ready? Pokemon Fire Red. This is uh, one of those games that was not a childhood game, but it might as well have been because I emulated this game so many times when I was younger. Right around when I was 10 and I found out what emulation was, I was like, well, I want to play Pokemon. So I was like, let me get a GBA emulator, Visual Boy Advance, shout out VBA, and just run some Pokemon Fire Red. I think I've replayed the Gen 3 remakes, the Gen 1 remakes, more often than I can count. These games are really good. They're awesome. But Fire Red was not my childhood copy. Leaf Green was my childhood copy. And I played this game just to death. This specific cartridge is not my childhood one. But this was the game that I had when I was younger. Fire Red, I got way after. So, but I played Fire Red a lot through emulation. Pokemon Ruby. I got this game actually pretty recently. One of the perks of working at a game store. And Pokemon Ruby is one of those games that I don't really think about that much because I just prefer to play its counterpart way more. And even then, I think its counterpart is a little bit inferior to Emerald, but not too much, like in the sense of Diamond and Pearl. But Pokemon Ruby is pretty solid. I know people who prefer Groudon over Kyogre. They're wrong, but hey, we all get to make our mistakes in life. So who am I to blame somebody for, being so proud of theirs? As I mentioned before, Pokemon Sapphire, banger, better than Pokemon Ruby. I don't really even think the Groudon versus Kyogre debate is real outside of Groudon and Kyogre, the fictional characters. But yeah, Pokemon Sapphire is it's a solid game. In terms of how I feel about Gen 3 overall, I like Gen 3. I like its vibes and aesthetic. I think its Pokedex is like not really one of my favorites, I'd say, but like I still like it a lot. Pokemon Sapphire is still a game that is it's pretty good. It's pretty good. In terms of the original Game Boy games, though, I've got Pokemon Blue. Now, I'm not the biggest fan of Gen 1. I don't really say I like Gen 1, to be honest. I've liked the Gen 1 remakes that came about in Gen 3, but in terms of Gen 1, Pokemon Red and Blue, not the biggest fan of these games, to be honest. I'm replaying through Blue right now, and it's not giving me really as much, negative feelings as I had when I was way younger. I think some of it also had to do with a little bit of like spite against people who were like dunking on Gen 5 and they most of the time were fans of Gen 1. So that probably could have been it. Could have been it. But Pokemon Blue is a game that I'm going to finish soon. And I'm excited to see if my opinions really change that much. I'd say one thing that has changed since I've last played it, or I've noticed since I've last played it, is that there's a little bit more team variety. I mean, I went into Brock's gym and I saw a Sandshrew and a Diglett. I almost said a Alolan Dugtrio for some reason. That's the version of Dugtrio I think of so often. And yeah, it's weird, but yeah, Pokemon Blue is it's a game, man, and hopefully, I think it's more than a game once I beat it. Pokemon Yellow, another Gen 1 staple. I actually have played Pokemon Yellow from start to finish, and I like Pokemon Yellow a lot more than I like Pokemon Red and Blue. Although I'm not really that big of a fan of the whole like, oh, Pikachu as like your main guy type thing. I love Ash Ketchum as much as the next guy, right? As much as the next guy born in the early 2000s. But I don't think I really want to cosplay as him for an entire game. I think I'll just settle with naming my character Ash and then just picking whatever team I want. But these games are good, and I'd argue that they're better than Let's Go Pikachu and Eevee, primarily because I just am not that big of a fan of the Go gameplay in the mainline games. Even though the Go gameplay is not bad, I just don't really want to see it in the mainline games. So, yeah, Pokemon Yellow, good, solid. Uh, and I'll do a two for here Pokemon Gold and Silver. I've got Gold, I've got Silver, Bling Bling, Bow. Oh, man. It's got to be one of the better games in the franchise for sure. When IGN made their top 25 RPG list and they have Pokemon Gold and Silver on there, I know some people, including me, were like, why is Pokemon Gold and Silver the representative for the franchise? It should be something like Pokemon Black and White. Honestly, if you even said Pokemon Red and Blue, that would have. I actually no, never mind. I was about to excuse it and be like legacy pick, but that would have been atrocious actually. But Pokemon Gold and Silver are good, as I mentioned before in my last video. There's just this weird feeling that a revisionist history towards Pokemon Gold and Silver, like as if they didn't, make one of the greatest sequels, RPG sequels in gaming history. It's dumb. It's dumb. But I played actually this game when I was younger. I emulated it. My brother and I both played each respective copy from start to finish. I played Gold, he played Silver, and it was a really fun experience. And we did it to prepare for X and Y of all things. So yeah, it was. That's definitely one of the things I'll remember the most when it comes to this game. But overall, not bad. Next up, I've got Oddworld Adventures. This was actually the very first original Game Boy game I ever bought. I don't really like this game that much. I started it up for a little bit, but I don't really enjoy the game. Yeah, I'll always remember this, though, as the one that started off like the Game Boy, original Game Boy collection, as small as it is. And finally, my last game, my last Game Boy Advance game. Now, you may be wondering, you haven't shown us the complete in box game yet. You said it was a banger, that it was something that, carries the entire thing on his shoulders. And yeah, I'm about to show you that it carries the entire thing on its green ogre shoulders. Now, I actually really like Shrek Super Slam a lot. Do I like it enough to get it complete in box? No, not really. But it came complete in box for a pretty reasonable price. So that's why I was like, why not? I like this game. I played this game a lot. For some reason, like, I don't know what it was. It kind of almost gave off this like eerie vibe because like it was like Shrek Smash Bros, but like the music was all like just kind of like mellow and stuff. Like I have no idea, not mellow, but like, I, hey, it's hard to explain things, explain vibes with words. But Shrek Super Slam is actually a pretty solid game. I actually recommend that you check it out at least for like a little bit because it's kind of interesting to see something like so blatantly copy Smash Bros, but like still be kind of endearing. I don't know how else to describe it. It's actually pretty solid. And with that being said, that was my Game Boy Advance collection. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. I appreciate the views as we've been going along, right? And I think the next console collection is going to be something that people actually really, really enjoy and really look forward to. I don't know why I'm doing this, but thank you guys so much and take care.